you remember lawyer Francis Malofiy? He's a Pennsylvania-based trial lawyer. You'll remember him when I remind you he's the guy who sued Led Zeppelin in that fascinating case over Stairway to Heaven. Months ago, Francis said to me privately, I'm involved in a case that I think is going to make big news and you will want to follow it. And indeed, today, posted at Smerconish.com from CBS News, is this headline. New Hampshire man arrested aboard cruise ship is latest to be accused of stealing a Hertz rental car. Quote, most horrific experience of my life. Let me find out more about this from attorney Francis Malofiy. Francis, thank you so much for being here. Tell me about Mr. Doucette and what happened to him.
Mr. Doucette was a longtime renter of Hertz. He was a President's Circle member, and he's about the best customer you'd want to have if you were a rental car company. And he was loyal, he was committed, he made his payments, and the way that Hertz thanked him for his loyalty was to throw him in jail with a false police report. And now even that Hertz knows that he's in jail, and even though that we've pled with Hertz's new CEO to give Mr. Doucette the world-class experience, at least, by the very least, take him out of jail or withdraw the false police report, they refuse to do so.
How often does this happen?
Look, this corporate disaster started to uncover itself in 2017 when a jury trial was won in Philadelphia and exposed that this was not a regional or a one-off problem, but a national systemic issue that affected every part of the country because these theft reports were done without doing an investigation at the local level to determine whether or not these cars were actually simply missing, lost, misplaced. And so when we look at this, one case turned into two turned into 10 turned into 26, and now we're at 230 and counting.
In other words, you represent more than 200 people who all say, and is it all Hertz? And they are all saying, I rented a car, I was totally within my contractual rights, and they nevertheless called police on me, reporting that I'd stolen the car. Is that what this is all about?
Yeah, it's an issue that doesn't affect or afflict other rental car companies. It's a Hertz specific issue because they do not do the investigation at the local level, and they also falsify information, including payment information. They backdate rental extensions and due dates. They delete records, and what's happening is you're having inaccurate police reports. The most troubling part about this is that last week in court in Delaware, in the bankruptcy court, Hertz's corporate designee admitted on the stand in cross-examination that, yes, we know we have issues in our theft reporting and there's inaccuracies. And what has Hertz done to address this? Absolutely nothing. In fact, they're too proud to say we're sorry. They're too proud to fix their mistakes. And the problem is they said multiple times that even if they know the information is false, even if they know the car was returned or payment information was made, they're not going to change the police report once it was made because they don't want to hurt the relationship with law enforcement. And that's a really, really harsh statement, which means that not only were we financially bankrupt that we got out of, but we have a bankrupt corporate culture, which puts the dollar ahead of human life. And that can't be.
Francis, these 200 plus clients of yours, how many of them had a rental car from Hertz and just kept it beyond the term without telling the rental car company?
The thing when I'm looking at cases, I'm very selective, and I don't want one bad case to infect, hundreds of good cases. So all of my cases are cases where it was a valid ID, a valid credit card or debit card. And what we have here is Hertz is basically knows they have inaccuracies in their theft reporting, knows that the reports are false and misleading. And even when this is brought to their attention, they do nothing to fix it. That's the most troubling part, in that you're thrown in jail. You say, I have a receipt. I have a receipt for payment. And you say, I've returned the car and I can show you that. And Hertz says, it doesn't matter. You're stuck in the system now. You have to deal with the criminal justice system. That's not a promise or a commitment to excellence. That's about the worst conduct you can have.
Okay, so here,
even if they held the cars up.
Yeah, here's the real question that I have. The question that I have is there some type of a bookkeeping computer glitch-like issue that Hertz has different than other rental companies, or is Hertz using local law enforcement as a go-to to resolve situations with its clients where other rental cars don't call law enforcement? I hope I've explained that well. What's driving this? Because this is not good for their business. So what's the rationale?
Well, it's not good for their business, and they're not going to be able to explain it. The way they explain it is they're stuck in a state of denial. I don't think that they thought that this issue would have gone this far and that the bankruptcy court would have discharged these claims, but it hasn't. And so all those things you said are true. And that's the hardest thing to actually understand or comprehend. It's like, that can't be. And when you look at it and when you spend time with it, it's mind blowing because yes, they have broken computer systems where headquarters and local offices can't keep track and can't reconcile the information in cars on their lot. That's one problem. But they also have marching orders from the top down that say, no longer do the local investigation that's required by their policies. What happens is you have an office in Oklahoma City who basically is looking at spreadsheets and data and filing theft reports without ever talking or doing an investigation at the local level. And what happens there? The car could be sitting on a lot. The car could know the manager could know the renter. And what's happening is that instead of saying, oh yeah, I know Mr. Smith, they just, basically are mass filing unverified theft reports, and their marching orders is not to do the local investigation. So what's happening is that,
finish your thought.
Really bad things happen.
So
what's happening is that when they don't.
Car and Driver wrote about this. Car and Driver wrote about this issue and your litigation. And they say the following: of the more than 25 million rental transactions by Hertz in the United States per year, 0.014% fall into the rare situation where vehicles are reported to the authorities after exhaustive attempts to reach the customer, so says Hertz in a statement. That makes it sound like it's a real drop in the bucket, but CBS News did the math and said that actually translates to 3,500 customers, quote unquote, stealing Hertz vehicles each year. So like more than 3,500 people find themselves in this kind of a position, begging another question of Francis Malofiy. Is this a thing?
Yeah.
Do people steal rental cars? Like, do people go out and rent a rental car with the idea that they're never going to return it? Like, that would never occur to me.
Well, there's two things here. Are there bad people in the world? Yes. Do people steal rental cars? Yes. Should those people be prosecuted? Yes. No issue with that whatsoever. But when you are a repeat renter, when you have a 1, 2, 3, 5-year history with Hertz, when you are a President's Circle member, if there's an issue where your payment doesn't process, or if there's an issue for whatever reason that they file a theft report, don't you think someone at the local or corporate office should reach out to that loyal customer and see this not as a stolen car, but as something different? And that's what should happen, and that's what doesn't happen. The big thing on the numbers here, let's be real about this. By their own admission, which we fought for 20 months to get, they did not want to reveal how many customers they reported for theft. And why? Because it is a very, very, very damaging fact. If you're a company, you don't send your customers to jail. And let's just talk about the import of what happens when you file a theft report saying this vehicle was stolen. It means it's going to be a felony stop. You're going to have men in uniform who are already at odds with society in many ways, pointing guns to people's heads. Okay. That's a harsh reality because you have a civil payment dispute. And that's what this amounts to. And what Hertz is effectively doing is falsifying payment information to the police, backdating and deleting rental extensions, filing this with the police. And then even if they have payment or payment was received later, or even if the car was received, they do nothing to correct the police report. And from the police's perspective, there's a presumption that these police reports coming from a global corporation
are legit,
are accurate.
Yeah. All right. I have one final. I have one other question. Is there a common denominator of your 200 plus clients where they did not stick to their original term? Like they went and rented a car for a day, or they rented a car for a week, but whatever the initial term was, in these 200 cases, the people had asked for and received an extension, and there was a mix-up. Like, I'm just thinking about me. I go to Florida and I rent a car for a week. On day 3, are they looking for me because of the screw-up that you're talking about? Or is the common case one of where the person then says, hey, I'm going to keep the car another week. Is that all right, Hertz? And Hertz says yes, but the left hand and the right hand don't know what they're doing. I hope I asked that clearly. What's the answer?
The answer is that there is a common denominator. What we see is that when people are extending their rentals, Hertz is having problems processing payment.
Got it.
Hertz is having problems processing the extension. The second thing is that when Hertz can't find their vehicle on their lot, they don't report it as, hey, this is misplaced or we got to look a little harder. They transfer the cost of their inventory control to the taxpayer, to the police and the prosecutor, and say, you know what, this car's lost or misplaced, report it stolen, let the police figure it out. I think it's the worst abuse of the police. I think it's the worst abuse of taxpayer funds. And we're happy that there is congressional interest, and we do have the support of Congress right now in addressing this issue. And that's the next big thing that's going to fold. If Hertz doesn't recognize that they're in a state of denial and they need to fix their issue on their own, then Congress will.
All right. CBS News coverage is posted on my website for people who want to read more about this. Francis Malofiy, you're always involved in something interesting. Thank you for bringing it to me for discussion. I appreciate it.
Well, there's another big music copyright case hitting this week, so you'll be I'm sure you'll be following that one too.
I hope it's not Freebird.
All right?
Tell me it's not Freebird. Francis,
it's not Freebird. That's a good song.
Well, so is Stairway to Heaven. Thank you, Francis. I appreciate it.
Yeah.